Farmington. KSJE is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center, your community hospital with a rich heritage that dates back to before New Mexico was a state. We've been improving the health of the Four Corners since 1910. As a nonprofit hospital, San Juan Regional Medical Center is a values-driven organization. We strive to deliver on our mission to personalize health care and create vitality and enthusiasm in healing. We are here for you when you need us, offering a comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and emergency care services. (8:36) KSJE. You're listening to the Scott Michlin Morning Program. And good morning to our viewers who are watching us live this morning on Facebook and YouTube. Let's take a look at our weather forecast that is coming up and what's going on out there. We are expecting mostly cloudy skies and off and on showers today, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. Highs each day in the lower 70s and overnight lows in the mid-50s. That is the remnants of Hurricane Rosa that has come to ashore off of the Pacific coast, off of Baja California. But that is a look at the weather forecast, and we have a big blob of rain that is heading our way. That's now raining in the Phoenix area and into northeastern Arizona. So that is kind of what's been happening. Coming up in just a moment, my conversation with MP Schildmeyer. She is running for New Mexico Representative District 3, and she is one of the first candidates to accept KSJE's invitation to all candidates running in contested races to appear here on KSJE. So we appreciate that, and we'll be hearing from her in just this segment of the Scott Michlin Morning Program. And still ahead this morning, we'll talk technology at the end of the hour with Lewis Campbell in our Monday Reboot segment here on KSJE. Joining me now in the studio here on KSJE and our visual radio studio for people who are watching us on Facebook and YouTube this morning, MP Schildmeyer, who is running for New Mexico State Representative District 3 in San Juan County, running as a Democrat. Good morning, and thank you for being here, MP.
Good morning, Scott. Thank you for having me.
You bet. I appreciate you coming in to talk a bit about the campaign, and you are going up against an incumbent, which is hard to do.
This is true. The people of District 3 have not had a choice in the matter since 2006 when Mr. Bandy first came into office. I feel that we do need a choice, especially in the times as we have them today with the economic issues, especially that the county is facing.
And I want to ask you a little bit about that, and a lot of it is dependence on extractive industries, I would say, and oil and gas and coal, and we're seeing one way or another, the county seems to be moving away from some of that. Obviously, it's still a big part of the economy, but like it or not, I think San Juan County needs a future away from extractive industries.
I couldn't agree more, Scott. As we all know, ConocoPhillips sold out to Hilcorp. BP has left the area. There may be one rig up in the county from time to time, whereas there used to be, 10 or 15 at a time. It's true that oil and gas is on a downturn now, and indicators are that it's not coming back anytime soon. As well with the coal industry, the power plant that P&M has is going to close in 2022. It's not if or maybe, it is.
Or at least P&M is going to close or get out of the coal business. I guess the idea is maybe someone else might take it over and keep it open, keep those jobs, and that is unknown.
Well, that's what the current administration, the current Republican administration in San Juan County is trying to do. President Russell Begay of the Navajo Nation tried the same thing with the generating plant in Page, Arizona. Thought he had a couple of investment companies from New York City to do that, and just came out the other day that they're unwilling and unable to do that because the situation with coal is continuing on the downturn.
They couldn't make the numbers work, I think, in that deal is what you're talking about. And I do remember that story coming out, right?
That's true. When you think that it costs 7.5 cents per kilowatt hour to generate using coal now, compared with natural gas, solar, wind, anywhere from 1.5 to 3.5 cents per kilowatt hour. It's less than half the cost to generate with the renewables or natural gas. There's just no economic future with coal. And the coal here in San Juan County is not good to export. It's not it's a high sulfur content coal. It's difficult.
Doesn't burn as clean as others.
It doesn't burn as clean. The anti-pollution devices are more expensive that you need to use to even consider burning it.
Right.
So I don't think we can rely on that anymore, and we shouldn't. We don't need to be out there looking for somebody to take over the running of the power plant. Those turbines can be run by any kind of energy. We need to find somebody to put a transition natural gas plant in there and at the same time get a solar array up. And even wind. San Juan County's not ideal for wind, but it's more than ideal for solar.
Right, I've heard that.
Exactly.
And so as a candidate, though, I mean, that's a tough position to have when you're talking to people maybe that have jobs related to that plant, maybe their relatives have jobs related to that plant, or they work for a contractor who works for someone. It's a big economic impact if that plant were to go away.
There are many people in my district, House District 3, that work with or at the plant in the oil and gas industry, and as you say, have family and friends that also work in the industry. However, in talking with these people, they're realistic. They understand what's happening.
Right.
They know that the industry's on the downturn. What they want is someone to explain what we can do to diversify the economy. And I do have some ideas. There are other things that San Juan County can do besides being an oil and gas center.
Right. But a lot of those things sometimes don't equal the same amount of jobs that would be lost. For example, it takes less people to run a natural gas plant than a big coal plant and an associated coal mine next door.
This is true. There are other things that can happen. This is something that's happening today in Germany, overseas.
Okay.
They had a similar deep coal mine that we have at the P&M plant. They put a lake on top of it. They put wind and solar on top of it. They dug out the coal mine and put the turbines down there. So the electricity is generated with the solar array and the wind during the day when the wind is blowing. At night, they open a valve. The water from the lake goes down and spins the turbines and acts as a giant battery. It runs the electricity all night long. Not one miner from over there in Germany lost their job when they made that transition.
Interesting.
The issue is, of course, funding such a thing. It's expensive.
Right.
But we have to do that. And you know what gets me about the oil and gas industry is who is better positioned to do something like that? Who has the resources better than the oil and gas industry? I do not understand why they're so unwilling to even consider transition industry.
Interesting. But that is something that you're talking to the voters about. Are these other outside-the-box kind of ideas, I
Exactly.
suppose?
I am. And the voters are very receptive. They want to hear different ideas. Another thing that I'm pushing in my campaign is to involve the citizens, involve the smaller communities in District 3. For example, Crouch Mesa had a terrible water problem a couple of years ago. I'm sure most people heard about it, read about it in the paper.
For a long time. I mean, it dragged on for over a year, if I remember.
Over a year. And then we all heard that they hooked up with the city of Farmington water and everything was fine. I believe that. So I'm out there talking to people on Crouch Mesa.
There's a but coming, I think.
There is a big but.
Okay.
They don't drink the water yet. Everybody there still buys bottled water. I had a gentleman who lives across the way from the two big the water storage tanks there on the top of the mesa, said he witnessed them come in when they were doing the transition, drain the tanks. They were to clean them out, found 6 feet of sediment in each tank, and just closed it back up. They couldn't afford to remove the sediment. So we have clean water on top of the sediment.
Wow. So still not really resolved.
Exactly.
Is what you're telling us. And that's a big issue here in the desert when we're dealing with exceptional drought conditions continuing, is a source of water. And we take it for granted, I think, a lot of us who maybe live in the city limits or have that reliable water for us. But those folks on Crouch Mesa who've had to cart in their own water for now months, years, it's never ending, or doesn't seem to be an end in sight for them.
my sister lives in Flint, Michigan, and of course we're all aware, I think, of what's happened there.
Right.
It's a similar situation. The pipes, I think, are contributing somewhat. The residents believe that the pipes that supply them their water are contributing to the condition of the water.
Right.
Here we have jobs being created. We need to replace those pipes. Let's
True.
create those jobs.
Right. And that is something that you feel the state, as a state representative candidate, can work to fix, not just in San Juan County, but there are probably stories like this from throughout our state, unfortunately.
I think that's true, and it is unfortunate. The state would be responsible for helping to obtain that funding. Also, the state representative can act as a conduit with our federal representatives.
Right.
And because the federal representatives have a lot of resources as far as applying for grants, funding grants for community projects just like that.
And you are running in District 3, and for folks who maybe aren't familiar, they should know hopefully what district represents them, but this is kind of the area around the city of Aztec. You mentioned Crouch Mesa. Help us with kind of the boundaries of District 3, if you would.
It's basically the eastern half of San Juan County. It starts at the Colorado state line, comes down through Cedar Hill, Center Point, Aztec, Bloomfield, a little bit Crouch Mesa, as I mentioned, a little bit of Flora Vista, and the southern border is around West Hammond, around 5,500, a little bit south of 5,500.
Okay. Now, I've got to ask you, because you're running as a Democrat, and San Juan County is pretty solidly Republican, but we're seeing a little bit of change, I think, in some of the more recent elections, at least city elections, perhaps even in the Aztec area. What are you hearing when you're out campaigning? Obviously, you can't just campaign with Democrats. You've got to cross the aisle and talk to Republicans, too, and independents, for sure.
I talk to the declined estate voters a lot when I canvass, and most of them are willing to listen to the options, to listen to what I have to offer. The people know that things need to change. They just need a leader who's willing to go with them and support them as they get through the change. And that's what I'm willing to do. That's who I am.
And your background, talk to me a little bit about that. You've got
Sure.
a legal background and a medical background, right?
That's true. When I was putting myself through college and law school, I lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and worked at the major teaching hospital for Emory University there for 10 years as a surgical technician. So I do have some understanding of medical issues. So then I did pass the bar and began my legal practice, which lasted 20 years in the state of Georgia. And after that, I retired from that and moved on. And kind of on a whim, I went and filled out a job application with O'Reilly Auto Parts and eventually became a store manager there in Kansas City. And that's what got me out here to Farmington area, the San Juan County area. I came here almost 10 years ago as a store manager for O'Reilly.
Okay.
And I retired from them in 2012 and began to be more active with the Democratic Party. So my background in the political arena here in San Juan County is that I was a precinct chair for a couple of years, became vice chair for the party. I'm currently serving as chair of the Democratic Party of San Juan County.
And I have to ask you, because it seems nationally, and especially these last few weeks, especially with the Supreme Court nomination and things like that, we see a lot of division in our country along party lines, it seems. You're either this or you're that. But there's a lot of folks, I think, in the middle who are just like, can't we all just get along and maybe get some things done?
I agree, and I think any elected representative, whether it be in D.C. on the national scale or here with the state, as I'm trying to become, our job is to represent our constituents, some of whom are Democrats, some of whom are Republicans, some of whom are not either, are independents or whatever. Our job is to represent all of those people, and that often involves and should involve compromise. And I'm willing to do that. I have a history of being able to do that. I think that's what's wrong nationally. You got one party in power, and they don't want to talk to anything that the other party has. Congressman Ben Ray Lujan is fond of saying, whoever has the gavel sets the agenda. Right now the Republicans have the gavel, and you can't get any Democratic issues up to vote on. It shouldn't be that way. Both issues should come to the floor and be voted on, at the state level as well.
Right, and a lot of folks may point to the state level and say, but look at what we have in New Mexico. We have a legislature controlled by the Democrat Party, and we have a Republican governor, and not much maybe has gotten accomplished.
I believe that will change this year. as a result of the election, I believe Michelle Lujan Grisham will be our next governor. She will be a fantastic governor, and I will be proud to work with her.
And of course, but if she's not, if the governor's not of the same party, that creates a different dynamic, obviously, right? And can you cross the aisle sometimes when needed for the betterment of the state to try to compromise with Republican colleagues at the Roundhouse?
Of course. As I said, I represent my constituents, the people in District 3. I will listen to what they need, see what they want, and do my best in Santa Fe to represent them.
And when you're out campaigning and talking to folks and trying to show the differences between you and your opponent, Mr. Bandy, who's been an incumbent now for a number of terms, I mean, there's pretty clear differences between you two, I would think.
Right. I mean, the issues, what do they stretch from? Well, I can tell you he's 100% approved by the NRA. I am not. I do believe in reasonable gun safety issues being passed. I have no problem with the Second Amendment. I own guns. I'm not after anyone's guns, but I do believe that we need some reasonable gun control. I attended the couple
More than we have now. Pardon me
more
for
than we have
interrupting.
now. Better background check.
A lot of folks would say just enforce what we have already and we're good.
I don't agree. I think we need better background checks. I think we need to do away with the large magazines, the extra large magazines, and I don't think there's any place for a citizen to have an assault weapon. I'm sorry. Those are weapons of war, and we don't need those.
But if they already have them, should they be able to keep them?
I can't see going in and taking them away. I think they'll have to be grandfathered in.
Okay, fair
But I
enough.
think we need to progress.
Right.
Yeah, slowly but surely with that.
Understood. Talk to me a little bit about some of your other thoughts on the differences between you and your opponent for folks who are watching and listening to us this morning.
I started to say I attended a couple of meetings of the Legislative Education Study Committee, which is the oversight committee of the New Mexico State Legislature on the education system. And they were in Aztec a month or so ago. And at the end, they had about a half a dozen of the Aztec students who had survived the shooting that happened last December. And 201, these students told these legislators, you know, we really appreciate what people have done to try to make us feel safe, what they've done after the shooting for us, but we don't feel safe, not a one of them. It was so sad. One of the young women came in and said, you know, every morning, this was through tears and very matter-of-factly, every morning I get up, I brush my teeth, I eat my breakfast, and I prepare to die. And she said, I don't believe I'm going to die, I don't want to die, but every morning I get up and I prepare to die. You know, our students, our children shouldn't have to go through this. They want something different. The same young woman had earlier asked Mr. Bandy at a meeting where Mr. Bandy and Senator Neville were meeting with the students to answer some of their questions about school safety. This young woman had asked Representative Bandy, couldn't we do something about mental health at the school? Couldn't we have more counselors? Do something, look into it. And her, you know, his response caused her to say, I felt totally disrespected. He didn't answer. He said, we can't, you know, we don't need to talk about that. So these are the kind of big differences that he and I have.
Got it. Right.
As far as education goes, we definitely need to beef up our mental health counselors and give them the chance to do their job instead of having them be responsible for jobs because we've cut teachers' pay, we've cut the assistance that they need. You know,
Right. Early childhood education, how do you feel about that?
I absolutely support it. I have a great-grandson that definitely benefited with early childhood education, needed it. I think it helps to socialize our children. Oftentimes the parents, in order to support their families, both have to work and they don't have the time that they need to be with their children. And so early childhood education does help with that.
All right. And P. Schildmeyer, we are running out of time. You'll be on the ballot as Mary P. Schildmeyer, right?
That is
for
correct.
everyone to know that you're the same person that I'm talking to on the radio this morning.
I have embraced my inner Mary.
Okay. As folks would like to learn more about your campaign or connect with your campaign, how's the best way to do that?
Okay, I'll give you my telephone number. I'm always willing to talk with people. It's 505-419-1268. And you can check out my Facebook page under Mary P. Schildmeyer for District 3.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for being here. Good luck with the campaign.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
You're very welcome. MP Schildmeyer, my guest here on KSJE.